I'm the star of this show. The rest of the party is just my cast. I have been playing RPGs for about 7 years. And every group has been with the same 3 people. And 12 new ones for every campaign. Sometimes it has worked out great with the outsiders we bring in. Others, not so much. The worst one we brought in actually worked great with our group through the first campaign we played. But when we changed games, his way of playing completely derailed the group. We were to start a campaign in a RPG with a fantasy setting. Our characters were to be in this campaign in prison. So our DM wanted us to say a few lines about our character's backstory as to how we ended up in chains. We all wrote about 45 sentences about this. Except one. He wrote 5 pages worth of backstory and demanded that our DM read everything and adjust the story forward to his backstory. Our DM was slightly irritated about this. Backstories and work put into your character is great and all, but this was a essay, not a quick read. But fine, he skimmed it. In the first session this player just decided to leave halfway through because he had an appointment elsewhere. That's fine, that happens sometimes. Session 2 he talked over everyone else when they tried to do something. He made reckless attacks, ending up with our DM had to be a little creative so he wouldn't die, as our DM isn't a fan of killing people of him the first couple of sessions. One of our players especially felt uncomfortable as she is a bit timid, and when somebody just boldly talk over her, she just stay quiet. Session 3 it got really bad. I don't think any of us got a word through, even our DM trying hard to ignore him and asking us directly what we wanted to do. But still he would just shout over us. The session ended with him trying to interrogate a fanatic. DM kept insisting that no, you can't get any information out of this NPC. He's a fantastic, and no amount of torture will do anything. The PC kept going, and we as a group and the DM kept telling him to stop and that we should move on. At this point we were several people complaining to the DM that we didn't like him in the group. He's a nice guy outside RPGs, but this was just way over the top and we would like to be able to talk as well. DM agreed and were to have a talk with him. But before he could write this guy a message, he wanted to meet up and talk with our DM about the group. This meeting was this guy shitting on the rest of us for not being involved enough. We gave up at some point, so we were all just playing with our phones, since we couldn't do anything without him telling us that was the wrong thing to do anyway. That we weren't understanding enough about his character. We didn't help enough during combat, we were busy actually killing things and keeping him from dying when he did stupid showman type of moves. That the group didn't have good enough chemistry. He wasn't a part of our group anymore. I get wanting to stay in character and putting a lot of work into it, but if your character is a self-righteous asshole, please try to make room the other players anyway. You are allowed to do some metagaming to balance things out so everyone can have a good time. The deck of many things broke my dad. This story has 2 main players. My dad. He is playing a bard who is the same as every other char. He plays a hybrid fighter mage with a high charisma. It's been like all of his chars, it's kinda annoying. My best friend is playing a halfling who loves gambling. The party loves this char. He has lost everything gambling multiple times already. It starts in the dungeon where they find the item. There is 2 keys that need to be turned to open a chest, but they don't know which key goes in the lock because each of the keys has a word in Dwarven. So the party sends my dad and the halfling with a gambling addiction into the room. I said it's a 50% and it's most likely trapped. They both say that's fine. They pass the check and open the loot. Inside is lots of gold and diamonds and the real treasure of any story, the deck of many things. The party goes back to camp. This deck was special. While it's a 22 card deck, it removes cards based off what you offer. The gambling loving halfling says he is going to offer his poisoner's kit, an amulet that is from his backstory, and 100 golden parts of his lockpicking kit. While this looks small, they are 7 days from a place to rebuy these supplies. I deemed this a grand gesture. The deck removed the cards of Void and Ongen. He says he will draw 3 times. First card loses all his magic items. Second he draws Throne. Third he draws Joker. He is a gambling addict, so he draws twice more. He draws Visor and Moon. That's an amazing set of cards. The cleric goes next. He offers 100 and his holy symbol. This again, I says, is a grand gesture and remove the same unbalance. He draws the Medusa, so he has a 2 permanently on all saves. My dad's turn. He says if I get a bad card he'll just retire the character anyway. I don't really care. He has 20 years of D&D, and we have had players be voided in the past and die to the various evils of the deck, even some of the good effects. He offers 100 gold and nothing else and goes to draw 2 cards. I still allow the deck to remove the 2 worst cards. He pulls the key granting him a golden blade. Then he draws the skull summoning a avatar of death and immediately gives up. He only basic attacks vs the death. He is level 6. He doesn't cast a single spell and dies. I describe the battle and his death as the party talks about what to do. He sits silently a few moments. Then he starts tearing up his character sheet in front of the group. I'm sitting there trying to keep a straight face as this is maximum childish. We have lost chars in the past, this wasn't the first. He rips his sheet to shreds to pieces and throws it away. He sits back at his seat for a while as a party gets their next mission. We were going to stop after I foreshadowed the next mission, so one of my players asks if he want help brainstorming a new character. He explodes. He gets up saying you'll regret this. I am gonna make a new character and you're not gonna like him. I like that character. I don't know what that means, but I'll keep y'all posted. Everyone else is super hyped to keep playing and super happy, so this won't kill the group. But it was a little surreal to watch a 55-year-old man rip up his sheet in front of his best friend the cleric and all of my friends. That guy and his crappy inappropriate characters. For the past year and a half I've been playing 3 campaigns with my friends on Roll20 and we chat over Discord. We have a Pathfinder and a 5e game that we play on alternating Fridays and a 5e homebrew game every Sunday, each with a different DM. As such, all these stories more or less happened at about the same time. About 8 months in, a guy on our Discord saw us talking D&D and wanted to join our games. He's never played before, so he talked with the DMs, got up to speed on the rules and the story in our campaigns. The first session he joined was our new Pathfinder campaign. We all roll characters, introduce ourselves, and tell a little of our backstory that led us to meeting each other. He didn't have any backstory, so we just whipped something up for him since this was his first time doing any role playing. He played a goblin artificer who specialized in making poison bombs and grenades. After some more world building we set off on our first quest to track some desert raiders down. We find them, and in the ensuing combat, his character just hides behind a rock and reads his book, leaving us to clear their camp. We let that slide because it's his first time and probably just wanted to see how combat worked. But over the 2 or 3 sessions he played in this campaign, all he did was slip away during combat to read his book, insult the party, root for whoever we were fighting, and on a few occasions, throwing acid bombs at us to level out the playing field for the enemies. We were pretty upset at him for this and told him that PvP was only allowed when both parties agreed to it, and since we didn't agree to being grenaded, he was gonna have to cut it off. Thankfully he stopped, but his character just would not interact in any way with our party. He went to the DM and was worried that the party didn't like his character, so the DM gave him some tips to make his playing experience better. In the last session he played with us, we had some downtime where we would stock up for our next adventure. When it got to his turn he basically stole the spotlight and set up a potion stall in the city market and tried to go on a 45-minute market simulation trying to run his stall. The DM tried to steer him away from it and get the session back on track, but he would just keep asking and messaging the DM about how many customers came, what they wanted to buy, and what he could do to rip his clients off, and try to drag the story back to him. The second game he joined was the other Friday 5e game. This was your typical hack and slash save a city dungeon crawler. This was the longest running campaign and he joined us as our party were hunting down a group of pirates who were responsible for blowing up a storefront and smuggling large stockpiles of explosives into the city. We had tracked them down to their mountain hideout, and on the hike up the DM gave him the cue to introduce his character, which went something like this. As you round the corner on the trail, you spot a naked, semi-conscious, horribly sunburned halfling sunbathing on a rock overhanging the trail. Okay, that's pretty weird. Being the cleric, I went up and healed him since he seemed to be in great pain. His character immediately becomes angry and is yelling at me for ruining his high. wiggles out of my arms, pulls a bag of magic mushrooms out, and shoves a handful into his mouth, and starts tripping balls. This was a pretty big red flag and the DM was caught off guard by this, because nowhere in his communications with the guy did he ever say his character was constantly high. But this was only his second game he'd ever played, so maybe he had a way for the drugs to help him. What he didn't know was that the drugs he chose gave him disadvantage on attacks and skill checks, and attackers had advantage to hit him in melee, so he succeeded in missing every attack he made when we were ambushed, and being a pincushion. He was not pleased by this, so he took out all his frustration on my cleric, and insulted him the whole way to the pirate idiot. When we finally arrived we had a pretty tense negotiation scene between my cleric and the pirate king. The entire time we're trying to work it out, his character is sitting in the corner, yelling at the top of his lungs about how much my cleric sucks, how he fucking hates me, and how he thinks I might touch little boys since that's what clerics do in his mind, and that he was going to try and poison me while I slept. This was a huge no-no, and the session ended there. The DM had a talk with him, since it's a pretty big dick move to join an established campaign and immediately start hating on one of the established characters, and that he was to get his act together before the next session or he'd be booted out. In the final game he joined was our 5e Borderlands meets Space Pirates homebrew campaign that meets every Sunday. This campaign is more comedic in nature, so we're a little looser on rules for behavior, so we thought he would fit in better in this game. We were wrong about that. When we was introducing to his character, he said his name was Get Fucked because that's what his parents and siblings said while they molested him. The DM was livid at him for this, and he was making the two women in the party really uncomfortable. He immediately apologized and said that it was just a bad joke. The DM, who was unaware of his other actions in the other games, just gave him a warning and said he'd get kicked out if he did anything like that again. A lot of this campaign was traveling through space on our ship to hunt down wondrous treasures akin to the Daedric artifacts from Skyrim. I was the captain of our ship because my character wasn't super smart, and from looking at pictures assumed that captains got their authority from the tricorn feathered hat. And since I had one, I must be the captain. And everyone just went along with it. Everyone except for Get Fucked. He kept mumbling about mutiny to test the waters and gauge people's reactions. About 2 hours into the campaign I had to take a 20-minute break to go hand feed my elderly dog. And while I was away my phone was exploding with messages from people in the group. While I was away Get Fucked was trying to rally the crew for a mutiny and leave my character stranded on a remote asteroid. The party members were having no part in it, so he tried to rally all our NPC red shirts to try and kill me. He must have had a grudge against me, because for the second time he was trying to kill my character. So I run back to my computer and confront him about it, and he just played dumb and said he wasn't saying any such things. The DM and 6 other players said that he was in fact planning such a thing, and the DM reminded him that he records the session and that he'd stop and pull it up so I could hear, and he just said, who are going to believe, me or them? I didn't do it. Having known him for all of 2 weeks and my party for the better part of a year, I knew he was full of shit, so I just banned him from everything we did. And in our Friday 5e campaign we just waited for his character to pass out from eating too many magic mushrooms again. And when he did, my cleric just put him back on his rock where we first met him. Legend says that to this day he is still sitting up there tripping balls.